In life, you have two choices. You can build a lifestyle or you can live a bullshit life, but you can't do both. Welcome to the Freedom Lifestyle Experience, where we focus on building the lifestyle you want. And now here's your host, Michael Burns.
Hey guys, welcome back. You're listening to the second part of last week's episode. Let's jump back in.
So this TD Jakes of the whole weekend, he was definitely one of my top speakers. And, you know, I'm sitting here writing all the notes down that he said. And as I'm kind of going through and sharing my notes with you, you know, these sentences and things the words that I wrote down, I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. But what I remember about TD Jakes is the way that he made me feel, the way that I felt when the energy was in that room and the way that he was speaking to my soul and the energy transfer. That's what I remember about TD Jakes. And it just kind of really reminded me of my purpose I have for Michael. You know, I literally wrote down for Michael, these are notes for myself. People need an example. People need hope. I'm going to provide it. I want to speak and preach to people's heart and soul. And that's just how much, you know, that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast. I'm just trying to share my message of personal accountability and staying loyal to the potential and all things, you know, in the lifestyle piece. So it's, you know, you're winning across the board. And, but that's all people want, man. They want hope. Everyone wants hope that there's possibility for a better tomorrow and that I'm loved and I'm accepted and I'm appreciated and that I matter. And these guys just really pounded that home. So the next speaker, her name was Stormy Wellington. This chick, she really special individual. I had no idea who she was till she came on stage. Really unique character. I mean, she was very intentional with her outfit and just the way she owns her uniqueness. But she gets up there and, you know, one of the first things she says is how blackety black she is. And I mean, I don't know where she's from, but she definitely loves her culture. And I think she's from somewhere in the South and they have, you know, just their different slang and style and whatever. But it was just super cool. But there's another level with your name on it. But she really talked a lot about culture and she addressed the black and the white thing fucking head on. And it was awesome and it was beautiful and it brought people together. It wasn't talking about division and it wasn't talking about racism and all this shit. It was talking about, she was saying, hey, white people, don't be scared of us. We want to get to know you, you know, and just her direct approach to such a sensitive subject in such a raw, unique way was just something super awesome to experience. But she said the culture needs an example, and she's talking specifically about her culture. And she said that was another thing that I appreciated too. She's like, we don't want to be called African American. We're fucking black. We want to be called black. It was just cool. A lot of the things that she was speaking to and just cutting down all of this politically correct bullshit and just human to human connection. But she was saying, you know, the culture needs an example. And that's her big thing is she's trying to be an example for her culture and the people that come from the streets and the hood and all the stuff she was talking about. Like they need an example. And that's what she's here doing. But she said everyone is battling a few things. And the number one thing that everyone is battling is, who am I? People don't know who they are. Don't be afraid of the unknown. Don't let anyone steal your power or put limitations on you. No matter what, don't forget who you are. You have to see it before you create it. And she kept using an analogy that I thought was cool about the seed in the soil. And essentially the seed is the potential and the soil is like the mentor or the environment. So she was referring to how, you know, she's a seed and she wants to put herself in the 10x soil. But the whole seed in the soil thing, you know, you're a seed. You need to be in the right soil to grow. So she's talking about you need to be in the right environment. Like if you're a garden seed for a flower and you're not in the right soil and you're not getting the right water and sunlight or if you're not in the right geographic location, you know, if you're a bird of paradise and you're trying to grow in fucking northern Canada, it's not going to work out. So just recognizing and using the analogy that you are a seed and you're not going to grow unless you put yourself in the right soil. Another thing she said that I thought was cool was manifest. And she was talking about sitting there meditating and wishing and praying. That's not good enough. She's like, manifest is I feast. Go get what you want. Like you're not going to get what you want or manifest what you want, but by not going and taking action and getting it. And she had another little analogy. So she had a formula. So FORMULA. And there was a kind of a word or whatever you want to call it for each one. So for F was faith. And this is the way she runs her life. So she has faith, you know, for O is oneness and connected consciousness. R for routine, M for mindset, U for unique, L for love, A for alignment. That's her life formula right there, right? If she's having faith, if she's feeling the oneness and the connected consciousness, if she's following her routine, if she's keeping up on her mindset, if she's being unique and true to herself and authentic, and if she's coming from a place of love only, and if she's in alignment, if she's doing all of those things, that's her formula for success. And I thought that was cool. I do a similar thing with lifestyle and our different core values. We have a core value for each letter. Never leave the site of decision without taking action. I'll say that again. This is a big fucking deal. Never leave the site of decision without taking action. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean you sit down and, I want to be successful and I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to come up with a game plan and I'm all excited. I'm going to start Monday. No, you don't leave the site of decision without taking action. So when you make a decision, you're going to do something, you take action on it right then and there. It doesn't have to, you're not going to do the whole thing, but you have to take an action right then and there, because that's cementing the decision. And it's actually you taking the action, which is showing that you're serious about the decision. And that's the difference of a thought and idea versus something you're going to start doing is the action piece. All I wanted to become, I became, therefore I am. I'll read that again. All I wanted to become, I became, therefore I am. And that's really just taking control of, you can be and do whoever it is you want to do or want to be. If it has been done, it can be done. You just haven't stepped up to the plate yet. If it has been done before, that's proof that it can be done. So the reason you're not able to do it is you just haven't stepped up to the plate and committed yet. I thought that was super powerful. The world didn't get the memo about your vision. You have to go show the world your vision. Trump said something similar. He said, you have to go tell the world who you are and what you do. You have to go tell the world about you. But the world didn't get the memo about your vision. You have to go show the world your vision. And this ties into the whole concept of 10X that I'm talking about. And, her manifest, man, I feast. Like, just because you've got goals and dreams and all of that shit and you're serious about it, the world doesn't know about it. They didn't get the memo. Like, no one's going to give you anything. No one's coming to save you. And that's what that means to me. Like, the world didn't get the memo about your vision. You have to go show the world your vision, and you got to go show it. You got to, because you're not going to create your vision and do it by yourself. You have to go motivate and move and inspire people and encourage people and give them hope and give them faith and, build this culture, because you're not going to do anything by yourself. And to me, that's what she meant by that. But Stormy Wellington, I still don't exactly quite know who she is and where she came from and all this stuff. I just know that she's sharing her message, and she came in, probably moved the crowd just as much as anyone did. And I think at the end of the event, she was probably one of the fan favorites. But when she was done speaking, Cardone came back up, and he basically said, the most important thing I've done all weekend is put this girl on this stage in front of you. And her and him talked a little bit, but really just addressing this racial gap and addressing this fucking division that's created. Like, humans aren't that way. Like, our society is not that way. It's I believe it's an agenda, and it's a thing that's just shoved down our throat. And, it's going to take us saying, no, like, it doesn't have to be that way. And it isn't that way. So really just her approach of like, hey, white people, don't be scared of us. We're scared of you. We want to know about you. We want to understand your culture. We think you guys are kind of fucking weird, and don't be scared of us and thinking just whatever it is you're thinking. It was just such a powerful thing. And I really pretty much, like, of everything I'm sharing with you guys today, the mindset stuff and all that shit's cool. But, I really hope you guys are listening to the communication thing that I'm talking about and the oneness thing I'm talking about. And really Stormy Wellington's message of just fuck all this black versus white stuff is really powerful and spoke to my heart. And I wanted to share it. And that's why I'm going on and on about it, because I think the world needs to really get that message. So next up is Tim Story. He's one of my all-time favorite speakers. He's a motivational speaker. He's a professional speaker. That's what he does. I actually saw him speak for the first time at coincidentally enough, the first 10X Growth Con. But if you want to go somewhere you haven't been, you have to do things you've never done. If you want to go somewhere you haven't been, you have to do things you've never done. And Tim didn't say that. These are just notes that I had here. I'm not sure who said that, but it's so true. It's like we all want these things, but it's like, do we want to pay the price, or we don't want to, do the fear of the unknown, or we don't want to let go of what we have to get what we want, or we don't want to change, like you are where you are, that's great, but what got you where you are now is probably not getting you where you want to go. And, you got to make that shift. So if you want to go somewhere you haven't been, you have to do things you've never done. So anyways, moving into Tim's story, he opened up with, "I might have been," are the saddest words any human could ever say. I might have been. It's time you fight to be everything God created me to be. Living in the past makes you a discount version of yourself. Living in the past makes you a discount version of yourself. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot right there. Who wants to be a discounted version of themselves, God is big enough to reverse the pain and curses in our lives. Don't nurse it, disperse it. A lot of what Tim was talking about, and you'll pick this up in my notes, is just not living in the past and like just letting go and just not living in the past and just saying, fuck it, it is what it is, not being a slave to that. So don't nurse it, disperse it, move on, go forward. Do not dwell on what has already occurred. Stop talking about your then when you were living in your now. I need to operate with what God already has planned for me. It's in your spirit, let it out. When you walk in a room, the energy should shift to suit your tempo. When you walk in a room, the energy should shift to suit your tempo. You set the tempo of the room you're in or the space you're in. And that really stuck out with me because what was I telling you guys when Trump walked up? Like the dude literally, he changed the energy of the whole room. Grant Cardone's another guy like this, and Tim's story has the same unique ability. So does TD Jakes, and so does Stormy Wellington. These guys all literally set the tempo of the room that they're in. And I thought that was awesome. But, he's talking about don't live in the past and basically stop talking about your then when you're living in your now, and then shifting into, you control the tempo of the room that you're in. And he talks about how a lot of people have lost their shout, and he's talking about how little kids, you're talking to them and they're just they shout. And, he's saying, let the shout out of you, pump up the volume, be on fire, be contagious, like interrupt life. And just the way that this guy speaks and just the energy that he brings and waking up your soul was just a really cool experience. And I've seen him speak multiple times. He's always been one of my favorite speakers just because, again, it's not what he's saying, but it's how he's making you feel. And as we're talking a lot about relationships and communication and stuff in this thing too, and it's like, it's not what we're saying, but it's how are people feeling, or how are we making people feel, or how are we making ourselves feel. People want to try and discount you. They will try to hold you in your setbacks. The greater the setback, the greater the comeback. I love that. The greater the setback, the greater the comeback. So Robert Downey Jr., you guys know who he is. He's Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. was like a big time Hollywood actor, and then he bottomed out, was on drugs, and he went to jail or prison or whatever, and he was there for a while. And then Tim Story started working with him, and Robert Downey Jr. was putting together a team of people to try and not even bring his career back, but just get his life back, get back on his feet. He's addicted to drugs and alcohol and all sorts of mental struggles and all of that shit. So he started building this team around him, and Tim Story was one of the guys. But, the greater the setback, the greater the comeback. And that's something that Tim's played a vital role with Robert Downey Jr. But those are kind of the notes that I shared with him. Don't be in a prison of your pain, mindset, or past, and start being animated, animate and create. So then Grant Cardone came out and shared a few words, and he brought up Glenn Stearns, who was the owner of Stearns, which is a giant mortgage company, and it recently sold. I'm not sure how long ago he sold, but he's a billionaire as well. He's actually had Undercover Billionaire. I don't know if you guys have seen that show, but Glenn Stearns is the guy that started that, and Grant Cardone was like season 2 of that. He was on there. But when Cardone came out, this is something I wanted to share with you guys. Foods, fears, and friends kill your best version of yourself. Food, fear, and friends will kill the best version of yourself. Another thing too, so this was day 3. So because Cardone opened the event with Trump, there was 4 speakers who actually bailed out. They just straight bitched out and no-showed, and they basically said because they weren't going to share a stage with Trump, or because Trump came and spoke, they were basically not going to come to the event. So they just no-showed, and it kind of fucked the schedule up. So there was a little bit of filling in the gaps, but Cardone was talking about that. But he said, one of the conversations, one of the guys hit him up and was like, why would you have Trump come out first? Like, why wouldn't you have him finish the event? I can't have my name associated with him. And Cardone said, then don't come, bitch. I got it. I don't need anyone but me. I got my courage. And that's big. I mean, then don't come, bitch. I got it. I don't need anyone but me. I got my courage. Really think about that. When you're like in the face of adversity and being judged or whatever it might be, it's like, I got me. I got my courage. I don't need anyone else. That's super powerful. So anyways, Glenn Stearns is up there with Cardone. Glenn, like I said, he's a billionaire as well, but he said a couple of things that will tie into what other speakers have said. But first thing that I wrote down, seek to understand, not to be understood. So this, whether it's Tillman Fertitta or TD Jakes or Tim Story, communication is this ongoing theme for me in this event. So seek to understand, not to be understood. Find people around you who support you. You make money by spending/investing. So you make money by investing money. Tillman Fertitta is saying, I invest in my business. I invest in my business. Find people around you who support you. And that's one thing that I'm noticing, not only in this conference, but any and everyone that's successful, like they have people around them that support them. And that goes back to the environment that I'm always talking about in the show. It's like you have to control your environment, and people are either like everything you're doing is either supporting your goals and your dreams or it's not. There's no middle ground. Maybe there's some neutral stuff, but like everything you're doing and the people you're like, all your actions, the people you're spending your time around, all the shit that you're doing, like it's either in alignment or it's not. So you really, that's a common thing that I'm seeing over and over. Creating opportunities is the best value I can bring to change our country and the world. And I just thought that's really cool. If you guys know who Dan Fleischman is, he's a big angel investor, business guy, social media guru that speaks a lot. But that's I've heard him say that multiple times too. There's all this political stuff going on and all this shit going on in our country and all this division. And, some people choose to not really address it and speak to it too much. And that's something I would say Dan Fleischman does. But Dan has he has the attitude, I'm investing in X amount of businesses and I'm going to create this many jobs. And that's how I'm going to do my part in saving our country and our culture. And Glenn's sitting here saying it again, creating opportunities is the best value I can bring to change our country and the world. And that's just really powerful. Instead of sitting there bitching and talking shit and, getting caught up in the left versus right, black versus white, and whatever it is, it's like, what value can I bring to change the country and the world? Like if we were all focused on what can I do to come bring value and support people and encourage people and just like do my part to make this thing better. Again, you're either in alignment and you're making shit better or you're making it worse. There's nothing in between. So if we were all to make that decision of like, what can I do? What value can I bring? You have enough time, energy, and money to do what's important to you. I'll read that again. You have enough time, energy, and money to do what's important to you. I don't have time is probably the biggest bullshit lie that humanity says to itself. But this really is the truth. Like anything that's important to you, you have the time, energy, and money. And if you don't, you're going to find it and you're going to make it work. And one last thing that I had written down with Glenn, if you say yes to something, you see it through, period. Like quitting is not an option. If you put your name on something, if you commit to it, just quitting is not an option, And for me, kind of plan B is reinforcing plan A is the way I go about that. So then Grant brings up his 5 or 6-year-old daughter, Scarlett. And this little girl, this beautiful soul, probably gave of all the shit that I've just told you guys and all the speeches and business advice and the humanity stuff and speaking to people's soul. You have this, I don't know, she's probably 6. You have this 6 or 7-year-old girl come up on stage and she probably shared the most powerful words of the whole weekend. And it was probably a 4-minute talk. But people label things and people to make sense of things. So people, or we label things and people to make sense of things. Don't let anyone label you or box you in. You are limitless. And those are the 3 things I wrote down from this 6-year-old girl. But talking about how we label people and we label each other so our mind can make sense of it. And don't let anyone label you or box you in. It's just so basic but so powerful. So anyways, and then basically Cardone came out, the end of day 3 and kind of pretty much said, hey, this is I know everyone watched and you took your notes, and he kind of, went through each speaker in the event and shared what he learned and what he saw, because, he's there to be a student as well. So this is the stuff that he ran through, saying that he had learned through the weekend. But every time he has compromised what he knew to be true to himself, it bit him in the ass. I'll say that again. Every time he has compromised what he knew to be true to himself, it bit him in the ass. So not listening to your gut, not listening to your instinct and going against that and not trusting yourself, every time he's gone against that, it came back and got him. This was another thing that spoke really loud to me. You have to pass on stuff you can do to do the things you want to do. So you have to pass on stuff that you can do, you're comfortable at doing, you're good at doing, so you can go do the things that you want to do. And I have a buddy here in Salt Lake named Jordan Atkin, and I remember having a conversation with him. It was earlier in business, and he was flipping houses, and I was flipping houses and doing the realtor thing. And he sat there and he told me one day, he said, I'm going to become a developer. I don't want to flip houses anymore. I want to be a developer. And I was like, dude, that's fucking awesome. You should do it. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to. Well, he finished his flips and he didn't do another deal for like, I think a year or a year and a half. And because he was leaving what he was good at and what he was comfortable with, because he didn't want to flip houses anymore, he wanted to go on to bigger development shit. And I watched him do it. And it was just something. I have a ton of respect for this dude. And he's a young guy. And now he's doing huge deals downtown Salt Lake. And he's got a ton of shit going on. I'm really proud of him. But you have to pass on stuff you can do to do the things you want to do. And that's like, you got to let go of what you have to get what you want. You can't sit there and focus on and be like, oh, well, this is all the shit that I did. What you have done doesn't fucking matter, because that's not going to get you where you want to go. But that was a big thing. What was an asset is now a liability. So this was interesting too. Cardone, he's got, that weekend, he raised $33 million for his real estate portfolio. He's got like $4 or $5 billion of multifamily apartments. But there was a guy in there that Cardone had pointed to in the crowd. And this is speaking to the what was an asset is going to be a liability. And this guy paid Cardone for one-on-one coaching. It's like $100,000 or whatever it was. And he's sitting down, him and his wife are sitting down with Cardone, and he has like, I think he had a $15 million business. And Cardone tells him, dude, you need to shut it down. This thing's going to become a liability for you. So imagine sitting there, you're paying this guy all this money. You think you got a good business going, $15 million a year in revenue. That's not small by any means. And this dude's telling you, hey, this is going to become a liability. You need to shut the whole fucking thing down. And this guy actually did it. And that was 24 months ago. And Cardone pointed out to him in the crowd and asked him, what are you guys going to do this year? And he said, we're going to do $28 million this year on this new business, or a revised business that he's doing from what he was doing before. And at the same time, Grant Cardone pulled out a check and showed everyone it was for $1 million for his real estate fund that this guy that he was pointing out to in the crowd actually wrote. So, but anyways, you have to pass on the stuff you can do to do the things you want to do. And I just put in there, this was a note to myself. What are you doing because it's easy that is getting in the way of bigger and better? And that's something we all need to ask ourselves is, what am I doing because it's easier, because I know how, or it's comfortable, that's getting in the way and holding me back or preventing me from doing bigger and better things? So that's something I'm taking a hard look at right now. I don't want the old me, you were doing all the shit you were doing, to change. Basically, yeah, my notes are off a little bit there, but basically he's saying he doesn't want the old version of himself. Believe in your name more than any other brand. Believe in your name more than any other brand. And Cardone's built this 10X brand, and he really was talking about Trump, what he learned from Trump, going through all the different speakers and what he had learned. So believe in your name more than any other brand. And that's something that Donald Trump did. And he claimed his brand, and then he grew into it, which was pretty cool, by putting his last name on that building. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to accomplish my goals. That's a big deal. Like for me, I'm always like, things need to be perfect, or instead of pulling the trigger on stuff, it's like just ready, fire, then aim, instead of ready, aim, make sure everything's perfect, check, then fire. You're not going to build momentum. So I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to get started. wake up to the marketing game. Everything is marketing. You need infrastructure, support, people, and protection. So every business, it needs infrastructure, it needs support, it needs people, and it needs protection. This was what Cardone was saying that he learned from Tillman Fertitta is always be prepared for an ass whooping. Always be prepared for an ass whooping. Risk takers are rewarded. You need to get known so people will invite you to the stage. You can change the world with your words. That was coming from TD Jakes. You can change the world with your words, and you need to get known so people will invite you to the stage. And when you're on the stage, that's when you can share your message. You need to be branding everywhere. Cardone is really, really good at marketing. Trump is really, really good at marketing. Tillman Fertitta and his restaurants are really good at marketing, and you need your branding everywhere. So, for example, he was saying no blank walls in your office or your event space. So Cardone was talking, he was literally in the room and he was, pointing to his staff, what's wrong with that wall? And they're looking at this wall, like at the actual event. And they're just they're not seeing what's wrong with this wall. It's just a plain wall. And he's saying there's no fucking branding on it. There's no 10X, no Cardone Enterprises, no anything on there. Why would we have a wall where there's 3,500 people in this space and we don't have any branding on there? He's like, that's crazy. That's just not okay. If you can't do it, hire it. Me hiring and delegating is probably the thing that slowed my business down the most is, until having Laura over the last year and a half, I'd never really had like a full blown assistant that I trusted and actually delegated to for real and like let go and trusted that it would get done. And since I've brought her on, like my business has exploded because it allows me to focus on other things, but not only like stuff that, just not only delegating, but shit that I'm not good at. For the longest time, I would run my books and super involved in the taxes, and I'm shifting all of that in the mortgage business, instead of me fucking around with the loans and stuff. My brother's really good at that. So I bring it in and let him, do what he does. So if you can't do it, hire it. Or going back to what Tillman Fertitta said earlier in the episode, he said he's not that smart. He just does what he does, and he does it really well, and he hires everything else. If you can be someone you've never been, you can do things you've never done. If you can be someone you've never been, you can do things you've never done. Be all in on you and your gig. Be all in on you and your business. And Tillman, same thing. He was, just invest in your business, invest in your business. What things do I need to get out of my life so I can get the life? What things do I need to get out of my life so I can get the life? And this is going through and looking at this is what Stormy Wellington, he's saying what he learned from her, but you got to remove all the negative and all the distractions and and really being honest with yourself, where am I now and what are the things that aren't serving me? What do I need to get out of my life so I can get the life? Find out what people want and give it to them. When you invest in yourself, you believe in yourself. When you invest in yourself, you believe in yourself. So listening to a podcast, you're investing in yourself. Me spending $5,000 for a ticket to go to 10X, plus the flight out there, plus the hotel and all the food and, the opportunity cost of being away from my business and just being down there. When I'm investing in myself, you believe in yourself. Or I've said before, when what I learned from the Medic guy is when you have a plan, you have confidence. Success always favors the risk taker. Do the hard stuff. Fuck taking the easy route. So anyways, guys, I know that was probably a little choppy. I'm just reading through all my notes there. I hope that brought a bunch of value. I just gave you all the information that I got that I spent $5,000 for, so you're welcome. But no, in all seriousness, the more that I invest, whether it's time and money, really my focus, my attention, the more that I invest in myself, the better life gets, whether it's business and investing to go to a 10X growth conference or investing in a book that I'm reading or investing in a mastermind, or if it's health and fitness and investing in a trainer or a nutritionist, investing in good food, investing in, a nice workout club to go to, your relationship, investing your time, doing a date night, just investing, your time and energy to listening to them. And that's something that I need to do a much better job of is the investment and the listening with others. But the more that you invest into you and your life, the better things are going to get. But if you don't invest into yourself and your life, how are you going to expect it to grow? If you have a plant it's not going to grow unless you water it and fertilize it. You're investing in it, you're caring for it. So you got to do that for your life. You got to do that for your business. And I've committed to being a lifetime student. That's what I'm always going to be, is always learning. And when you're not learning, you're dying. And also, when you're not communicating, things are dying as well. So I hope that brought some value for you guys. I'm glad to be back on, bringing another episode to you. I want to connect with you. Let me know what you want to hear about. I'd love some topics. I'm going to start bringing on guests as well. I just wanted to get some of my material out there, but I'm going to start interviewing some people as well. And I want to connect with you on Instagram at Mr. Mike Burns, on Facebook at Mr. Michael Burns. So you guys go kick ass, build that lifestyle, and we'll see you guys next week.
This is the podcastfactory.com.